All right, so I want to create this tutorial overview, basically what we had covered last week. So to start, we looked at resolutions. We looked at Photoshop. Um, Talked about what low res, what high res is, 72 DPI versus 300, CMYK, and RGB. So when you start, you have to make sure that you prep your images. All right. Um, you definitely want to make certain that when you are setting something up for screen, you're sticking to RGB. But if you're setting things up to go to print, you're going to want to make sure that you're staying in CMYK. So when we start, we end up looking at the article that we're working on. You can use any of the images. You can use other images as well. You just need to source them. So when you drag this off and onto your computer, then you're going to open it up in Photoshop. All right. So drag it down, drop it on top of your Photoshop document. It will open it up in there. Now, what's happening here is if we go to image and we go to mode, this is where you change right away from RGB to CMYK. All right, so we're going to select CMYK. I'm going to hit OK. Then the next thing you're going to do is go to image size. Once you click on image size, by default, it should look like this. You should have this selected, and only your width and height is joined together, right? Um, Underneath that is your resolution. So what I want you to pay attention to is the image size up here, right? So if, the 3.81 is the information that is, put into this image, we want to change this from a low res to a high res. So at a low res at 72 DPI, it's going to print at 17 by 11, okay? But that's low res. That's only 72 points per square inch, okay? If we just simply change this to 300, you can see how it goes from 3.8 to 66, right? So it's forcing all of this extra information into those pixels when we're kind of blowing it up, and it ends up making it pixelated. It looks all blurry and fuzzy and not great at all. All right. So what you need to do is when you bring this into Photoshop, you're going to deselect the resample. So this way then all three of these lines are joined together. Now, see the 3.8? I'm going to change this to 300. It's going to keep it at 3.8. It doesn't add any pixels. But what it does, it will condense everything down into a tighter information in the points per square inch. And you end up losing the actual physical size that you can print, right? So it's basically a quarter of the size it was, but you're gaining that much more resolution in the photo itself. So right here, with this image you're pulling off, the biggest it can print is basically 4 by 2.5. Okay. You can stretch it out, right? So you can definitely sometimes, 275, 250. If it's going to be like a background image, then fine. Maybe you do go down to 150. But if it's going to be an image that's, large and brought out and you want it to be like an impactful image in your design, you're going to need to find another image for this. All right. So we're going to hit OK. And then we're going to save. So we're going to go up to File, Save As, and then we'll save it to the desktop for a second. And you're going to use a TIFF. So any image that you're saving that is going to be just basically a flat image, nothing special. You're not going to be using it as a clipping. You're going to save it as a TIFF. You're going to hit Save, hit OK, and now we can close this out. And then when you want to bring this into your document, it's simply dragging from the screen, or you can place it. There are a couple different methods that you can do. If Actually, what I want is to show you, I think I showed you this in class. So these are the two, this is the original JPEG and this is the TIFF. When you drag into your InDesign, you end up seeing it part of your cursor. So now I can click and drag and make it whatever size I want. Okay. when I click and drag, it's going to ignore a lot of the sizing requirements of what I need, right? It's just simply going to say, all right, I'm going to take that image and I'm going to put it into that place. If I simply drag and drop and click, this will drop it at 100% of what that file was. So you can see that this is still kind of retaining that 4.5 by 3 roughly of the size of that that I wanted. Sorry. If we look at this and we go to our, where's my links? Right here. Okay. So in here, this is going to be useful whenever you start bringing images in. All right. When you select it, it's going to show you, all right, CMYK. The more important thing is right here, your effective DPI or PPI, points per inch, is 192. It started off at 300. This one here, you can see it's 300 and it's effective 300. So when I increase the size of this, it goes down. If I go smaller than what I need, it's going to go higher. So you always want to try and make sure that this stays above 300. So this way then when it prints, it's going to be nice and crisp for you. All right. Okay. Other items that you can do is when you want to bring in something that is going to be clipped out. All right. So I had found images that sadly was just Legos. So when you open this image up, which I already have it here, saved as an EPS, you're going to, I'm going to just open this one back up. You're going to create a clipping mask around this item, all right? So you're going to go to your paths. I already have a path set up. So you can create new path. You're going to use your pen tool. You're going to zoom in. And then you're going to start clipping all the way around this item. All right, so it's about using those Bezier curves that you did in Illustrator. When you click and just let go, it's going to be a straight shot. If you click and drag, that's where you get the Bezier curve. So up here, as I come through this, I'm going to have this curve and I pull and drag. Once you drag, now you can see this handle is going further out. So if I try and go down here, it's going to shoot this way. So what you do is you end up clicking on, holding the option and going down, and then you can go back around. All right. So once you go all the way around, you'll end up having this path that closes all the way. Okay. Once you have that, you're going to click on these 3 lines and you're going to go to clipping path. Then you would select the path that you want, right? So if you have more than one, you're going to need to select the one. But if you only created one, then that's the path that you're going to select. All right. Once you have that all set, then you're going to go up to File, Save As, and instead of a TIFF, you're going to save it as a Photoshop EPS. That's going to bring all this information that you just put in for the path itself and pull it in and then knock out the background for you. All right. You save it as an EPS. And then when you drag this in to your document, it clips out everything that was in the background. All right. All right. So now the other way that you can bring images in is through Illustrator. All right. So you have your images from Photoshop. You save them in a folder. Make sure you're staying organized. Now, this is where a lot of students will want to have their application frame selected. I never use application frame only because for me, I'm dragging things into my InDesign file from Illustrator. I'm dragging things in from, wherever the placement is. So I need to be able to see this window with everything else around it. So in Illustrator, you can save the files as an EPS. Or you can simply drag from Illustrator itself into your file. All right, but you have to have the 2 windows open side by side. The advantage of dragging into here is this is vector, right? So this is still an object that can, be tweaked in InDesign. All right. Now, if there is a file that you're trying to drag from Illustrator into InDesign, it becomes very clunky. It's very detail oriented. It will give a placement just like it would for a photo, but it's still connected back to that Illustrator file. So it's still doable, but generally speaking, if it's small and it's in a vector base, then you'll be able to just drag it in, and then it's part of this InDesign file now. It's not like a link that you'll find. All right. The other thing that we looked at was you can create shapes, right? So if you wanted to have a circle, where am I? Right, so if I want to have an image in a circle, I can draw a perfect circle and then drag into that circle. And then I can make this sit however I want inside that circle. All right. You can also use the pen tool, right? So now that you're going to be clipping out images, you'll get better at using the pen tool to create a shape. So then once you have that shape, you can then drag right into that shape too. Okay. All right. The other thing, which actually I think I might have missed this in the class. If you have text, you can drag an image into the type. So you'll end up outlining the text just like what we did in Illustrator. And then you can drag, you can put the image inside the text. All right. Okay, good. All right, so now I talked about staying organized. All right, and the importance of, remember, when you're working to make copies of your document, so this way if it crashes on you, you don't lose everything. So right now, down here, you can see a little green dot. It says no errors. Everything is good. I have different images brought in. Let me bring in this other one too. Okay. Everything's fine, but now let's say I move this out. Oops. Because I already have it out there. And I have now errors. All right. So if I double click, I can click on this and it's going to say missing link. All right. So you can see that these two images that I dragged in is no longer there. So if I go to my links, I can see a little question mark. All right. I click this, I can drag this down, click, oops. You can see that the path has been severed. Okay. It's no longer where it used to be. So now I need to bring this back in for that to go away. Okay, so now I have no more errors. So just make sure when you are creating your document, you have a lot of different images, you want to have a folder where everything sits inside. You can have a folder within a folder, right? You can create a folder and say, all right, this is going to be my images folder. Everything to do with this project is going to go into there. And then this way, nothing's going to happen, because if you don't, and you have that error and those images are gone, you cannot print. You're not going to be able to export. You're not going to be able to print this. And you're going to have to go and find all of those images again and then replace them into your document. Okay. The next thing we looked at were text wraps. So when you have your the text itself and you want to have a little bit of a text wrap and you want to bring something in to push text away, we talked about having like a pull quote. So if I wanted to have a quote that kind of breaks away from the text, so let's say I'm just going to use this text here. I'm going to cut this and I want this to be a text wrap. And it's going to be a little bit bigger. And I want this to sit in here and break the text away. You do not, under any circumstances, sit here and say, all right, I'm going to select this and hit this a bunch of times. All right? Because when that happens, you move this in, what happens if I now want to get rid of this text? Now I need to go back and with this text wrap, move this up, all right? Or rather with this pull quote. What you want to do is you want to give this text box a way to push text away from it, all right? So make this text box as tight as you can. Go to your text wrap, and you're going to select the second option and then move it into place. And now you can see it pushes the text away. So I can move it around my layout to figure out where I want that to be. And if it's sitting in a certain spot and I now then all of a sudden need to delete this text, it doesn't affect that at all. It just moves the text around it. All right. You can control how far this gets pushed away. So I can push this further up, right? I can have it come down. Oops, I'm going the opposite way. Okay. So then that's allowing you to push that text away from this. Now, as it sits here and it pushes the text away and creates that space for it, sometimes I want something else to sit next to it. All right. So let's say I want to have, open quote, right? So I'm going to hit open quote, but I really don't want the open quote there. I kind of want it bigger sitting off on the side. So if I create an open quote and then I increase the size, and let's say I want it to be, well, I guess I'm just going to keep it like this. And then I have this coming in, oops, and I try and put it right next to it, right? As I try and push it in, you can see it goes away. So there are times that you want to ignore a text wrap, okay? So with that text, you can have Command B selected. You're going to come up here to the text frame option. And at the very bottom, you have this Ignore Text Wrap option. When you select that and you hit OK, I now can move this all the way into this text wrap and it's not going to be affected. All right. So that's how you would set up a text wrap with text. Now, it can be other items too. You can be images. So let's say I wanted to have this image that I found. I drag it in. And I want this to wrap around. Now, if it has a white background, sometimes you can let InDesign break it away for you. Okay? So with the text wrap, and I have this image selected, I'm going to choose the third option. And you can see it pushes the text away. So let me push it to the background. And then down here, you can have detect edges. So when that is selected, you can see that as I push the text away, it's using the edge of this item and then having the text kind of push away, just like what we did with that text box. Now, what you want to be careful of, especially something like this that has these little indentations, you don't want this to happen. All right. So as this comes through and it creates this, you want to clean this up. So as this comes through, you really don't want that text sitting there. When you have a text wrap, you can adjust it. So let's say I'm happy with the way this is. I like the distance that it's doing, but it's really just that 4 is an issue, right? So I can click on the white arrow and I can create, oops. I can go in and adjust the text wrap and move everything in to kind of keep text from falling into that space. All right. I could also probably, which would have made more sense, is pull these up a bit. So that way other will end up moving into that space. All right. So you can adjust once, but you don't want to do that until you are happy with the distance and everything that's happening. Because once you do this, you no longer can change any of these values. All right. So let's say we have that other image that we brought in. Let's get rid of this one. We have this one that we brought in, right? From it had a background. We used the path and then clipped it out, right? So now when we do the exact same thing, let me send this to the back. All right. And then we click this. We don't need to select detect edges. You can do that, right? So then it finds everything. But we went through all that hassle of creating a path. We can select that path. You can see Photoshop path. When we select that, it pulls in that path name. So now we use that to push the text away. All right. And then the same thing, you can go in and adjust these to get rid of these awkward places. But that's how you would bring in different images and apply a text wrap, just like the text wrap for a pull quote. All right. We talked about the Greek letters. So if you have different letters in your, or rather you're using the Greek alphabet for your formulas, you would end up going up to glyphs. You may have to use different typefaces to make sure that you have those different options. But this is where you can end up finding all of those different letters that you're going to need. All right. Then we talked about the last thing, full spacing. So when you have full spacing like this is going to be baseline alignment, and you have your text kind of coming through. Sometimes you need to have that gutter tighter, right? So if I end up wanting to, I need this to go away. Let's get rid of this and this. So I want this text to be tighter, right? So if it's this close, I can't have this much space sitting here, all right? Because the rule is the gutter must be wider than the space between your paragraphs. So what you're going to do is you're going to remove these full returns, but you have to indicate that there is a new paragraph. So either you are going to, increase a little tab happening here, or you're going to give a half a space, all right? So when this is all closed in, you're going to select, go to your paragraph, and you're going to look for this icon right here, and you're going to increase it. So you can see what's happening is it's adding a little bit of space when there's a new paragraph. It throws off your baseline alignment where your text isn't going to be lining up all the way through, but now we can get this much closer because now we're not breaking that rule. So this is where if you don't want to have a full space and you want to have a half a space, that is where you control the spacing for a new paragraph. Hyphenations, please make sure you have hyphenations turned off. That is going to be in your paragraph tab. So I think by default that's going to be selected. So make sure you turn those off. And then that. Oh, and then the only other thing that we had covered that day was how to release your parent objects. So we have in our parent, so if I double click on this, I have my page number sitting in here, right? If for some reason as I come in here and I don't want this, it's still in there. I don't want this one being on the back cover, right? I definitely want this off of here. You can hold Shift and Command and drag across and it releases it. And then I can hit delete. So now it's not part of it. If for some reason I do that to a document and I'm like, oh, I really want that parent item back, all I got to do is just drag that back in and then it pulls it back in. All right, so it's Command Shift, click on it, and then you can delete it. That's also useful, let's say like this here, right? So it should have one there. Yep. Let's say that this is, like a page 2, not the cover. I need to have that page number in front, right? But this image is blocking it. I can release that parent item, bring it to the front, and now I can drag this back down, and now that page number sits on top. All right, so that's how you would release parent objects. The other thing that we had discussed was cleaning up your text, right? So when you are looking at your text itself, there are going to be little source quotes. There's going to be maybe source information that you're going to be pulling in. You're going to want to get rid of all of those. When you are showing web addresses, right? And it's going to be for print, you never need to add the HTTPS :// All you need is the URL. That's it. I think that's it. It's everything that we had covered that day. So yeah, awesome. So hopefully this helps anybody that wasn't in class. Hopefully it helps those of you that need a reference. But yeah, good luck.